Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Xander Sprague.
Hello, epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Xander Sprague, and today I am so honored to be joined by Elma Linz Kanefield. Elma, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, I am Elma Linz Kanefield, and it is a joy to be here with you today, particularly because I'm recovering from a bout of asthma and I can speak. I am a psychotherapist and a life coach, and I work exclusively with performing artists. I am also an author, which is an epic achievement for me.
I could agree.
I wrote a book called Hamlet's Mirror, and what Hamlet's Mirror is a compilation of what I learned in the last 40 years from the artists with whom I've worked, what they've taught me, and I hope what they will teach you.
Absolutely.
Because as Hamlet says, it is our artists, after all, who hold the mirror up to life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And things that we share similarly. I am a licensed professional clinical counselor, so I too am a mental health provider. And when you talked about how epic it is to have written a book, I couldn't agree more. I've been lucky enough to write 3 books.
That's right.
But if you'd asked me in college whether I'd write a book, I say absolutely not. Truth be told, I say I'm a talker, not a typer. So the fact that I've written books it blows my mind, honestly.
It's epic.
It is epic. It is. So where to start? There's so much. Okay, so how did you get into being a psychotherapist and mental health?
I had my own issues, and a lot of them had to do with performing. So in Hamlet's Mirror, I developed the concept of performance potential. It's about an epic feat, reaching your performance potential. That's both internal and external. And what performance potential is to me, and I hope can be for others, is being and doing the best that you can, knowing what you know at the moment of performance. In other words, if I was, say, a housewife having a baby and changing a diaper for the first time, it might be rather scary.
Sure.
If I was doing it for the 20th time, piece of cake. If I was an artist performing a Chopin etude for the first time, I might be rather clumsy. But for the 13th time, I would know more at the time of performance, at the time of doing, and it would be different.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can say that aside from being a motivational speaker and stuff, I spent nearly 20 years as a technical instructor. I taught people how to use software, and so I absolutely, and that was a show. I mean, I do love being in front of an audience, so
Yeah.
I totally get what you mean. Where I always knew the first couple of times I was delivering a class and I didn't worry about it. I just knew from experience that there was stuff I was not going to remember. But as I got more familiar, what it allowed me to do is, I don't know, sometimes it was almost like this out-of-body experience of I could see myself presenting, but I'm spending time looking at the audience, or the students, seeing how they're reacting, seeing how I need to tweak this particular presentation to captivate them, and coming up with vignettes and stories to help make it memorable and stuff.
Yeah, you were knowing that you were reaching your performance potential at that moment, but at another moment you'd know more and you'd reach another performance potential.
Absolutely. And it's true that I also, when I was growing up, I did some plays, and elementary school and high school and stuff. And I remember when I had bigger roles, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that line. But what I learned, what I was told by my drama teacher is, unless it's a really famous play and you flub up a line,
Who knows?
no one, you're the only people who know are the actors. So as long as people don't go, no one else is going to know. In the same way that when I'm giving a speech or you're doing, no one knows that you messed up but you.
One of the important things about epic moments, and performance potential is thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And in Hamlet's mirror, I developed a mantra, which I love to dance to. And it goes, when you change what you're thinking, you will change what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yes, because unless you stay in the moment of performance right now and you don't think of the outcome, you lose that motivation. You lose that love of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You loved what you're doing. You love what you're doing now.
Absolutely.
But if you were thinking, oh God, I've got to make this good, you wouldn't be with yourself. And that's so important, to stay in the moment, not think of results.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And certainly when we on our epic journeys, whatever that may be, I like to, for me, epic, the letters EPIC stand for every pilgrimage includes commitment. And when we're trying to achieve something big in our life, it really is a pilgrimage. You're going towards something that has significance to you.
Moment by moment.
Moment by moment. It's the only way that you can do it. It's great to say, I know where I want to end up. I know what my goal is. But you can't get there unless you do you're doing each of the steps that need to happen.
Hamlet's mirror took me 30 years to write.
Well, congratulations. It is, I know what an achievement it is. And it's, I don't know about you, but I know that the writing of the book was very challenging, but equally as challenging was sort of that whole editing, proofreading process on each of my books. By the time it came out, I actually had fully read my book at least 6, if not 10 times.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't want to be reading my book for a while, because I'm like, I have just spent, a month rereading everything I wrote, and also being a little critical of, well, do I really want to say it that way? And I think there is that whole thing, like a performance or writing a book, good enough. At some point with your book, you just have to say, I am happy enough with the way it is. In a performance, we can always be, I think sometimes the meanest person in our life is ourselves.
Yes. And I think you identified such an important word in epic living and performance potential living, which is enough.
Yeah, it's and it's funny. I mean, with my clients, and I talk about that when I'm working with them, and I'm like, that may be good enough. Oh, but it's not perfection. And I'm like, you're not going to get that. And oftentimes it's other people who love what you've done. They love your performance, and they come up and they tell you how much they liked it. Sadly, in our own mind, we're like, really? I missed this line. I didn't do this. I didn't. And I know I honestly didn't see myself as an author. I wrote my first book and sat on it for 5 years because I just didn't believe, in my book. My first book was about sibling loss, and I didn't see myself as a writer. And I kept telling people I was coming out with a book. Oh yeah, I'm coming out with a book. But the truth was, I was no more coming out with a book than I was about to fly to the moon. I mean, I was like, I don't want to be that person who says I'm doing something and not actually trying. It's fine if you're trying to do it. It's taking longer than you believe it was going to take you. So I finally put out the book, and I really kind of had that imposter syndrome, Elma, where people came up and told me that they liked my book. And in my mind, honestly, for about 9 months or a year, I'm like, really? If they had told me that it wasn't worth the paper it was printed on, I would have believed that more than the fact that people were enjoying my book and found value in it.
What made you know that you wrote something of value?
I wrote this book for my fellow sibling survivors. So my book is about sibling loss. And I guess when you hear a message enough different people tell you that they like something, you've got to start to believe it because there's so much positive evidence, right? And outside and to prove, to use a bit of cognitive behavioral therapy there, right? When I was thinking, oh, it's not, it's not worthy or whatever, ask myself, what proof do I have that that is true? There wasn't, but there was so much proof that there was value.
Outside,
absolutely.
Inside, I would hazard a guess that your epic moment you credit outside, but you had an epic moment inside where you began to trust yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I've been fortunate in my life to do many incredibly epic things that I just didn't think was possible. But I didn't actually, I haven't let that stop me. Just because I don't know how to do something, I perhaps have an overblown sense of belief in myself, but I do think it helps me greatly because I've gotten hired for jobs that I had no right to be hired for. I mean, absolutely none. Like technical jobs that I just were, I'm like, I look back and go, how did they ever hire me? But it's probably because there is something to be said about self-confidence, kind of that fake it until you make it kind of thing.
Well, or that you have a core belief, a trust in yourself, in your performance potential. You stay with yourself.
Yeah. And I know what I want.
Yes. Knowing what you want and what you need is such a crucial part of epic moments moving forward. They're so parallel and performance potential. I learned that. The performers I worked with taught me that so vividly. And that's for anybody. May I share two personal stories?
Yeah.
I wrote a book. Spell check doesn't even get me, okay?
I'm right there with you, trust me.
And I started psychological service. I had this amazing opportunity to start psychological services at the Juilliard School. They trusted me without any administrative background. And it's still going, and it serves the school just so amazingly. They were so fearless in trusting me.
Absolutely. And that is, I was going to ask you about working at Juilliard. Absolutely. And that's awesome. So here's a question I have for you.
Yes.
You said it took you 30 years to write Hamlet's Mirror.
Yes, without spelling.
I trust me. I'm a talker, not a typer. So what I figured out to write my book was I dictated.
Yeah.
And then I had something to work with. And no one says you have to sit down and type at a keyboard. I remember growing up, I was horrible spelling. And, my mom always going, what are you going to do? You need to know how to spell. And I'm like, I'm going to have, someone to do it for me. And then, word processing came along and all of that. I do also absolutely get that there are times that even spell check can't figure out what word we're trying to do. I remember my mom's like, oh, you have a dictionary, look it up. I'm like, Mom, if I don't even know how to start to spell the word, dictionary isn't going to help me. But enough about me for a moment. I'm interested, when your book came out, what was that moment for you? Like when all of a sudden you're like, my book is out, you're telling people. 30 years that's a very long time to work on a project.
Very touching question. Thank you. It was epic.
Absolutely.
It still is. First of all, you know how families divide into roles?
Yeah.
My sister is a beautiful writer. I mean, exquisite. She's the writer.
Yeah.
I had help from a wonderful colleague. It's still amazing to me. It's amazing. And what's most amazing is that I learned from the book all all the time.
Mhm.
I practice the book.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the stuff I wrote in Epic Begins with One Step Forward are really came from what I have done and what I continue to do, what I need to remind myself. Like failure is part of the process. I am going to try stuff and it's not going to work. And in a variety of things. In this age of wonderful technology, I have spent, sadly, but it is just the way it is, probably thousands of dollars on different programs to help me do different aspects of my job. And those tools didn't work for me. It's not that they were bad. They just weren't the right tools for me. The same way that if we are cooking, we try a certain type of pan, all clad or Calphalon or whatever, and that pan just doesn't work for you. Doesn't mean it's a bad pan. It's just
No,
not the one for you.
It's a lesson.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, there's absolute look. You learn how not to do something, right?
Or you learn what doesn't work, so you turn to something that works.
Absolutely. And the only thing that we will fail at are the things that we don't try. And I really believe that for so many people, they have epic dreams. Those things that we say, oh, I'd love to write a book. I'd like to run a marathon. I'd like to travel someplace. And my question is, so why aren't you? How can...
What's stopping you?
Yeah. Why can't you do it? And the funny thing is, it really does begin with one step forward. And what we discover is that step is not nearly as hard as we imagine. And I work with lots of people who have, there's stuff that they want to do. And then they're like, but I don't know the whole path. And then I just remind them, I said, when you got up this morning, did you have all the answers to all the questions that you were going to get today? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, so why'd you get out of bed? You didn't have, you didn't know everything. You didn't have everything. So I don't understand. If you didn't have the answers for everything that you were going to get asked today, why is your epic dream any different?
Yes, that's great. You break it down into something so manageable a day. You didn't know your breakfast wasn't ready.
Exactly. We don't know what's going to happen. Look, we obviously, there are things that we know are going to happen during our day. You and I have this awesome interview, but neither one of us knew where this conversation was going to go. Didn't stop us from going, I know every question you're going to ask, Xander, and I have prepared every answer. So what? You show up.
Boring.
Well, exactly. And because you work with performers at Juilliard and outside of Juilliard, every time they do a performance, it's different. If they're in TV or film and they're doing a take, every take is just slightly different. It can't help but be because
the moment's different.
Yeah.
That's performance potential because the knowing is different. They are different. Their thinking is different. Their feeling is different.
Yeah. One of the things, and I'd love to ask my guests this, two words that are I think so important and should be your passenger in your life is not yet. Has your book come out? Not yet. You just say no, it's such a hard stop. But as we both know, getting the book actually, printed, it's a not yet. I'm still editing's taking longer, but it means that it is going to happen, right? And so what's one or two of your not yets?
I'm a great grandmother 3 times.
Wow. Look at that.
I have 3 great granddaughters, and I mean that in a great sense.
Sure.
And I haven't been able to help my granddaughter who lives in Massachusetts as much as I want to. That's one of my not yets.
All righty.
Another not.
How about a TEDx talk on?
Yes, thank you. I'd love to. What's stopping me?
I too really want. I'm all ready to do a TEDx talk. I just have to find
my subject.
Well, I mean, I've got the subject. I actually have to find, kind of the TEDx meeting. I discovered amazing things. You go to the TED Talk website and they have the TEDx, but for some reason you could see where they're organized, but they don't actually make them put like contact info. So there's no way that as a speaker you could say, hey, could I come what's the process to see if I could come talk at this event?
Thank you. I would love to do that.
See, there's a big not yet. Doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. I also talk about there are the not yets that may never happen, but we still hold open the possibility.
Because anything's possible.
Absolutely.
That's a way of thinking that keeps our epic step forwards, our performance potential vibrant.
And because you're working with performer, there is so much, they have to have that. They have to have sort of the not yet mindset or the performance potential mindset, because there's so much rejection that goes on, especially if you're in acting, but also if you're a musician, you're auditioning for stuff. It's devastating.
It doesn't have to be.
No,
it does not have to be. First of all, one of the ways of thinking is to learn not to take it personally. And that's for anyone, because people are separate. People could think I'm a dumbbell because I don't spell. Okay. If I took that personally.
Well, it's kind of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
What you're thinking.
Right. But for people to say, I want to get cast in a regular TV series or in a movie, or I want to.
Good for them. Good for them.
Absolutely. And it may take a long time. They may get a lot of rejection, and
it depends how you feel your feelings. Feelings are wonderful resources. They inform and how you act or don't act. In Hamlet's Mirror, I do a whole section on feelings, because we're taught to think in school. We're not taught to feel.
Yeah.
And feelings are very misunderstood and misinterpreted and really abused part of our wonderful human resources, I think.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Elma, can you believe that here we are? We've been having so much fun, but our time is sadly, how did this happen? Well, we've gone on an epic journey of exploration about your fabulous book. My question is, how can people find your book?
They can find it on Amazon. They can go in a bookstore and order it.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. It is awesome.
And from time to time, you might go to Amazon and go, let me just see how my book is doing. Oh, look at that. People have reviewed it and liked it. Imagine that.
That's fun.
It is fun. Well, Elma, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It has truly been epic.
Oh, thank you. It's been joyful. It's been learning. It's been fun. And I'm so happy that we did it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And to everyone else, I just want to remind you that if you go to epicbegins.com, you find all the resources for you to start your epic journey. And as always, epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book, Epic Begins with One Step Forward, at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Xander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Xander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.